This is Worth the Journey, a Worthington Schools podcast. I am your host, Angie Adrian, and I get to serve Worthington Schools as the Assistant Superintendent of Academics.
And I'm Jeff Maddox, the Assistant Superintendent of Operations and HR. Together, we are your hosts, and we're thrilled to have you join us.
In Worthington Schools, we serve about 11,000 students and 1,400 dedicated staff members. Our pride really lies in the strong relationships that we build with each other, which in turn creates this vibrant and supportive culture.
Culture in Worthington Schools is about shared values, traditions, and the diverse perspectives that define our community. It's the foundation that makes working together not only productive, but also enjoyable.
Our mission in Worthington Schools is to empower a community of learners who will change the world. And through this podcast, we have the privilege of sharing the stories of those who are already changing the world.
Join us as we highlight the incredible journeys and contributions. Great to be back.
It is good to be back. I'm excited about today. It's good to be back because while our audience may not know this, we did have kind of a gap in recording, a gap in time, because our avid podcast producer, Corey, decided that he needed to do like dad things and go
selfish,
have a baby, right? And take paternity leave.
Kind of focused on himself kind of deal, and
really
then forgot about us and the podcast.
I mean, who puts the podcast second?
Yeah,
Come on, Corey.
What I learned during this time, though, Ange, is I thought you and I actually knew what we were doing. We literally have no idea what we were doing because we could not do a podcast without Corey.
We couldn't.
We would have no idea how to do it.
Congratulations, Corey.
Congratulations, Corey. Thanks. Welcome to being a dad.
Yep.
Congrats, Corey.
Yeah. Jeff, did you take leave?
I did.
Only
so I have 3 kids, Grant, Trent, and Grace, and Grant was born in February. I had intentions of taking a week, and on day 3, Kelly looked at me and said, it's probably time for you to head back to work, because Kel's mom was there, my mom was there. There was plenty of hands on deck.
That's right.
And
get out of my way.
Quite honestly,
right?
I probably was getting in the way, and I could have been a bigger help back at work. So
I'm sure Corey was a help at home, right? Gina was glad to have you there all the time. Every minute.
Tune in next week.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Gina's going to be on next week. You just don't know it, Corey.
But Jeff, we get to interview somebody that's certainly not new to Worthington Schools, but in his first year as building principal at Worthingway Middle School, Mr. Todd Keenan. Todd, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
It's great to be here.
Welcome, Todd.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah,
Dated myself a little bit there.
Yeah.
Todd is, in fact, a longtime listener, and I'm not saying it's a fake longtime listener. He genuinely will reference episodes of our podcast, which is pretty cool.
Hey, I love them. It's a great way for our staff to get to know each other and for other people outside of our community to get to know the awesome things that are happening in our district.
And I can always count on Todd to get a text message every once in a while that says, hey, I listened to this podcast. Check it out. It really aligns with our district's mission or vision. Cool. So while ours is probably the top of his podcast list,
100%.
He has
Definitely.
other podcasts that he
Absolutely.
listens to as well.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, it's definitely bookmarked as number 1.
Yep. I guess I'll forever be known as the podcast guy now, but do listen to a lot of them. I've got a commute coming into work. For many years, I walked to work, actually, because I lived less than a mile away. And for most of my career, my longest commute was from Gahanna to New Albany. And I was really worried about how that commute was going to go.
Without walking.
So
right?
exactly, without walking. So then when I got hired into Worthington, it's, okay, I've got to drive to work. What am I going to do on this 20, 30, maybe some days 40-minute drive home, And so started listening to podcasts and have loved them since.
Todd, tell us a little bit just about your background and growing up, and maybe a little bit about your family. Let our audience get to know you.
Sure. My wife and I have been married for over 20 years. In fact, we were high school sweethearts. Started dating when I was 14 years old, even though I wasn't allowed to date until I was 16. I think I probably, a couple of times where I said, hey, I'm going to go ride the bike over to Brandon's house. But, went and saw her at the park or something like that.
Hope your folks don't hear
hopefully,
this. You might get grounded.
Yeah, hopefully your parents know that now. I wouldn't want you to be suspended from work or anything.
Hey, the statute of limitations is up. We're good. So we've been together for over 30 years. I could not do what I do without her. The support that she provides is immense and amazing. We currently have 3 kids. Landon, who's 21, he's finishing up at Otterbein this year. He's going to get that done in 3 years.
Wow.
Brooke, who is 20, she just started at Columbus State this year. She is going to go the teaching route. She likes the younger kids, the snotty nose, the ones that you got to chase around. Yeah. And then Laura is 10, and she loves to dance. All three of my kids, I'm so proud of them. They're just great people, and they treat each other well, and they treat other people well.
Todd, when we had kind of our pre-interview conversation, you shared a pretty cool story about the spring. You do kind of a family bracket, right? Tell us about that.
So we're a very competitive family as well. You may not know this, but so my wife was an athlete in high school and tried in college before injuries. I was a high school and college athlete. So we just get pretty competitive. What we do with March Madness is we all fill out a bracket, and the winner gets to pick what place we go out to eat. The second place person gets to pick out the dessert. Third place person doesn't do anything. Fourth place person pays for dessert, and then the last place person pays for dinner. At the time of this recording, we just finished that actually, and the winner was my 10-year-old daughter, Laura. Shout out to Laura for winning. She had Florida beating Houston in the finals, but the right side of the bracket, she only missed 2.
Oh, wow.
If we had put that in, she would have won some big time money. I know.
I'll call her next year.
Yeah. More importantly, where did she choose dinner?
She chose Cane's.
Oh, I do like Cane's.
And then Landon, he's 21. He chose dessert. He decided to have my wife make a birthday cake.
Oh, nice. I like birthday cake.
I do like cake.
The other night we had Cane's and birthday cake. My stomach felt so bad afterwards.
Didn't you just recently say you eat healthy?
Yes, it was not good for me. I was not ready for that.
Yeah, so we do a family bracket. It's grown from family bracket to plus others, significant others. Shout out to myself as I won this year.
All right.
So I'm going to totally steal that idea. I wish that would have happened this year because I would have been able to pick dinner. And
where would you have picked?
Yeah, where would you pick?
I don't know. That's a great question. I'm the one asking questions here, Todd.
Pretend it's a rapid fire. What would you pick?
Kitchen Social. I love Kitchen
I was
Social.
going to guess that.
You were going to totally guess
That's kind
that.
of a Friday night.
That's a Friday night place for Kel and I is Kitchen Social. I love that place.
I think we just recruited a couple sponsors for this podcast.
Yeah, so Kitchen Social, please. Yeah.
Just going to be getting gift cards in the mail.
Please.
Started off in college at Wittenberg. Wasn't originally thinking too far ahead at that point in terms of what I wanted to do with my career. In high school, I didn't create really good learning habits for a student. And so college was an eye-opening experience for me. I remember sitting in one of my social studies classes, I was an integrated social studies major, and looking around and I see that everybody's got the exact same book. And I'm thinking like, I think I'm missing something here. Why does everybody have the same book? Well, it's in the syllabus. You need to have this. I was like, what's the syllabus? So that's kind of where I was as a student to start off.
Hey, Jeff, did you hire this guy?
Actually,
I mean, seriously.
No, I really didn't. But I do like these stories.
Growth.
Yeah, we're all about the growth mindset, right?
That's
and
exactly
Todd's going to get there.
That's exactly. So I did struggle with my first year in college and decided in my spring year that I was going to transfer. I decided that I wanted to be a teacher, wanted to be in education, and I thought that I wanted to eventually live in Central Ohio. So being in Wittenberg, I wanted to really network around Columbus and made the change to Otterbein. So that's where I graduated from. I remember talking to my dad and asking him for permission to be able to transfer schools. And he basically said, well, you're going to have 1 quarter. At that time, Otterbein was on quarters. You've got 1 quarter to get it done. And if not, we're kind of pulling the plug on financial support and you're going to be on your own. So when I started at Otterbein, I started engaging in study habits and figuring out how to work hard and how to become a learner. My first report card at Otterbein, I got all A's and 1 B. I remember looking at that and thinking, I should never have an excuse again. I'm going to get all A's. I'm never going to get a B again. And so from there on out, continued to work hard and got good grades and graduated from Otterbein.
So when your dad looked at you and said, you have 1 shot at this, that is a heck of a motivator.
Yep.
Anything behind that motivation, Todd, that you might be leaving out of why you might be at Otterbein?
Oh, boy. Well, so my lovely wife, she happened to be at Otterbein at that time. It was just a coincidence, Jeff, that nothing more than that.
Yeah. Crazy how just the world connects each other, right?
I think my parents probably saw through that, and they, had probably figured out the real reason why I wanted to transfer, but it all worked out in the end.
Ange and I are excited to have you on because the whole purpose of this is for you to reflect on being a first-year building principal. And Ange, you sat in that seat. I sat in that
did.
seat. You and I both transitioned out of high school assistant principal roles into a middle school. So I'm excited to hear Todd's reflection on his first year, understanding that each year is going to be a great opportunity for you to grow. But talk with Ange and I about the transition from a high school to a middle school and what you have learned about yourself.
You know, middle school is the one place where I think you can simultaneously feel young and old at the same time. Anytime a student will come up to me, Mr. Keenan, say this. Nope, I'm not going to do that because I don't know what that means.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to say
Let me Google it before we
exactly.
do this.
Being in administration was not necessarily anything new because, you know, I'd been an assistant principal for years. I was at Thomas for 5 years. But it is different being the building principal than an assistant principal. I definitely have a much more difficult time turning it off at night. When I leave the building, I'm constantly thinking about my staff and students and ways that I need to support them better, and thinking about the good things that are happening and the things that we need to improve on. But overall, you know, it's been a fantastic transition. Worthington is a great place to be as for any staff member, but especially a building principal.
What level did you teach?
So I taught high school.
Okay.
So for the first 11 years, I was teacher in social studies department. I taught everything except for government. Started the AP Psych course at Gahanna. It's still there, going strong now.
Oh, good. And you also coached,
Mm-hmm.
did a little coaching.
Yep. Feels like a lifetime ago, but
Yeah.
that was a really important and valuable part of my life. A lot of connections and relationships were built through that I still have today.
Anytime we reflect on our career, there's always someone that we can attribute our own growth to. Are there people in your life who you give much credit to as you become an administrator?
Two people that immediately come to mind are my mom and my grandfather on my dad's side. When I was young, my mom founded a Montessori school. She led that for a long time. And then when I became a young adult, I was able to see her take some big risks and show a lot of courage by starting her own restaurant. I also saw my dad support her in that. So when she started her own restaurant, it was a big financial risk and a ton of hard work. The group that she respectfully hired was kind of a ragtag group, but I was able to see her support them, grow them, and love on them, and that was really influential on me. My grandfather on my dad's side was a regional president of a Fortune 500 chemical company. But what I remember about him and what I believe is his legacy is how he treated other people. In particular, my grandma, his wife, she got Alzheimer's. He spent every day with her throughout that entire process. And even when she didn't know who he would still go visit her every day, bring her lunch. And so she would recognize him as the person who would eat lunch with her. How they treated the people that were in their life, it wasn't necessarily what they did is what impacted me, but it's how they treated the people that was in their life that impacted me.
So take those two influences and apply that to how you lead Worthingway.
Well, I started the year with the staff with sharing my top 10 expectations of them. And they created their expectations of me. So within my expectations, they're not created equal. The first three have more weight than others. And I believe that those three expectations really align with what I learned from my mom and from my grandfather. So the first one is to love others. I think sometimes in our society today, that word love gets thrown around and used differently. It's not really well defined. It can be ambiguous. What does that really mean? And so the way that I define that with my staff is that love is an action. One of my favorite books is Love Does by Bob Goff. So in his book, it's just full of examples of how you love other people. Sometimes we can say that we love somebody, but what does that really look like? You might be thinking, or listeners might be thinking, well, how does that come into a public education sphere, right? And I talk to my staff all the time about an example of how we love others is as a teacher, you're setting up routines and procedures in your classroom so that your students can be successful. You are setting high expectations for all students. You're providing forgiveness for them and fresh starts when they need it. Those are all examples on how we can love others. My favorite quote on love comes from this guy named Chip Ingram. And so Chip Ingram wrote, "Love is giving someone else what they need the most when they deserve it the least at the greatest expense to yourself." So when we build as teachers and as staff, as educators, when we build systems for kids and positive procedures and expectations and routines, we give them fresh starts, we hold high expectations, that's how we love kids. That's how we love others. So that's my first example or my first expectation for staff. The second is to love yourself. In order for us to be able to do number one and love others, we've got to take time so that for ourselves to recoup and rejuvenate and have some balance in our life. So I do talk with my staff about how they're taking care of themselves, whether that is so that they're building routines and systems in their own day. So does that mean that you're taking 10 minutes out of your lunch period to go into your room and close the door and read a book or listen to music? Does that mean that you're going to go out on the track and get some steps in during the school day? Does that mean that there's going to be 1 or 2 nights a week where you're just not bringing any work home and you're going to spend time with the family? That's all really important to me as a leader, that my staff is taking care of themselves so that they can be at their best. And then number 3 expectation is to grow kids. Ultimately, that's why we're there, is that we need to grow kids and we need to add value to them. They need to be better human beings and better learners at the end of the year as a result of our influence. So we can do that from loving others and loving yourself.
Obviously, Todd has expectations for his staff. But what I loved was his confidence to be able to say, what are the expectations for him as a leader? We all have jobs. No job is more important than somebody else's job. We're all trying to do the best work we can. What I appreciate is you put yourself out there to have your staff say, here are our expectations for you. So how do you hold each other accountable with that, though? What does that look like?
I'm a stander. So I stand at my desk with my computers. Right beside my desk are my expectations of staff and staff expectations of me. So I'm looking at that daily and doing a self-assessment in terms of where am I on that? What is an area that I can grow in? What's an area that I need to improve on? Talking with staff members one-on-one in terms of how the year's going and how I can support them better and differently.
And I would be really surprised if the staff's expectations of you didn't align a little bit with what you expect of them. Did you see some alignment there between the two?
Yes, very much so. They want me to be supportive to them,
Sure.
help them to grow as well. And that's what they've asked both Abby, wonderful assistant principal, and I to do.
Todd, when you're sharing and the audience can't see you, and Jeff and I recognize this a lot when we get to interview people, a lot of excitement in your face, a lot of joy as you talk about your staff. Take just a minute and give some shout outs to your staff and what you're grateful for.
Anytime I can brag on my staff, I'm going to want to take advantage of it. Before I even came to Worthingway, I heard it was an awesome place, and I heard that the staff is great. And I'm reminded of that literally every day and every week. 2 prime examples that come into my mind. We've got 2 retirees this year with Kevin Schwab and Dan Villette. And those guys have been teaching for over 30 years. And every day that they come into school, they're still teaching as if it's their first day. And that's just impressive to me. And that is an example that is set and modeled for the rest of our staff. A dangerous organizational culture would be an I got you culture. Worthingway is the exact opposite of that. We have an I got you culture. That's not anything that I created. I've been there for 9 months. You cannot create that in 9 months. But that's what I walked into. I'm very grateful for Nathan Kelleberger and Bill Moska and the other leaders and the staff that's been there for a while. Worthingway is a place where the staff is going to support one another and support their kids. Whenever there's a need, whether it's with a student or with a staff member, they wrap their arms around that person and know exactly what to do to move forward to help and support that person. It's just a fantastic group of people that come to love kids every single day and support each other.
I hope Dan and Kevin have an opportunity to hear what you just said, because that is one of the highest compliments you can give somebody who is going to be and probably has already begun the reflection of a career. And if their building principal can say that on the way out, they are teaching like it's their first year, that is an incredibly high compliment, and I hope they have the opportunity to hear that.
Todd, as Jeff is out and about, it's recruiting season, so as he's out and about recruiting new teachers, he continues to hear from our young future teachers that they actually listen to our podcast, right? They've heard it, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity yet in your position to hire any new teachers yet. You have?
I have,
so
yes.
Awesome. That's great. So talk with our audience a little bit, because we do have listeners out there that want to know, what are we looking for in Worthington schools?
I kind of gave the cheat code away a little bit earlier with my expectations and my top 3 expectations, and that's it. Sometimes I hear a lot about the importance of understanding content that's important. But to me, that's not high up on the list. And maybe that's my own background too. I struggled in school. I was not the strongest with the content, but I wanted to love other people and I wanted to work hard. And so I felt like those are kind of my two things that have helped me along. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but that is what I look for. I look for candidates who can love others. And what does that look like in their life already? And what examples have they had or shown that they do that? How do they take care of themselves? Do you have hobbies and do you have things that you're involved in that you like? And what is the plan to grow kids? And also, do you understand the influence, the impact that you have on a student? I try to share the message with my staff as much as I possibly can for them to know their impact and understand the influence that you really have over any other factor in a student's life, that the teacher plays a tremendous role in helping them to be able to grow.
Todd and I have had the opportunity to partner on trying to fill some positions, and I will tell you, Todd takes, and the Worthingway staff takes really great pride in vetting candidates to make sure that they're inviting somebody in to the Worthingway family, and it shows.
In a good way, my staff's tough to please, right?
Sure.
They're so strong. They want someone who's going to come in and grow them and stretch them and make them better as well. Obviously, my staff is willing to support new people, and they do. We do a fantastic job of doing that. But they also want someone who's going to come in and help to make them better as well.
And what I hope is, if you're listening to this as a candidate considering the Worthington schools, what I heard Todd say is kind of a core belief in Worthington, and that is we look for people who care how other people feel. And you mentioned it. Don't ever forget your job is to grow students. But don't ever forget they're going to define their experience based on how they felt, not based on what they learned. Mm-hmm. Right? So we look for folks who create that feeling and grow students, and they don't even know why they're growing, but they're growing, and they want to be a part of whatever's going on in that classroom.
Absolutely.
I kind of reflect on my first year as a middle school principal, Ange, and I'm sure you listen and reflect on your first year. I can only speak for myself. Todd, you are light years ahead of where I was my first year. I was 29 years old at Perry Middle School. Half of that staff were former middle school teachers of my own as a student. And for the first couple of years, I actually had to pretend like I knew what I was doing. But what I was blessed with was a group of people who wanted to lift me up and help me because they could have made my life really hard, but they chose to do the opposite of that. And they looked at me and said, hey, we're going to help him. And I really appreciate that. But I also hear you saying that about your own staff. Regardless of what point in the career you're in, they're there to help you as well.
Our staff, they just care about each other. They're just great people. So it's not just wanting to help me, and that's a great example of that. Your staff wanted to support you and going there, and my staff is the same way with me, but they're that way with everybody. They're every staff member, no matter what your position is. We're there to help each other out and make each other better.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for the opportunity to just learn a little bit about you and your staff, but you're not off the hook yet.
Hey, you know the rules, Todd. You can ask to pass. However, the answer will always be no. We'll wait you out uncomfortably until you give us an answer. So here we go.
Let's do it.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Definitely earlier bird. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock every night.
I'm an early bird too, but I'm not in bed by 9.
I set my alarm for 4:39, but I've hit it maybe 5 times this whole school year.
4:39?
Yeah.
Well, that's an oddly
Why
specific time. Why not 4:40?
Like 4:40?
4:39.
The digits add up to 16. That was my number.
Ah, jeez.
So it's they just have to either add up to 16 or 12, which was my wife's athletic number.
All right, and we're back. Favorite pump-up song before a big day?
The first one that came to mind is Thunderstruck. AC/DC.
That's a good one. One food you could eat every day and never get sick of it.
Can I say protein shake? Does that count?
You can, but we
Boring.
like if we're like on a we have a lame meter, and that's a total lame response.
How so?
Oh yeah, this is a judgment zone, not a judge-free zone. We're gonna, protein shake. I'm giving you the space and freedom to choose one food for the rest of your life, and you're going protein shake.
You can change up the flavors.
Chocolate? Is it at least chocolate?
You can change up the flavors.
Okay.
That's why I said
Do you drink it before 9 p.m.? All right, first job you ever had?
Mowing grass, probably like 9 or 10.
Favorite book or podcast lately?
I listen to different podcast styles on the way to work and then on the way home. So the way to work, I'm listening to leadership podcasts. On the way home, listen to something a little bit more kind of personal, whether it's faith related or health related. Overall, favorite podcast right now is going to be Ruthless Equity, Ken Williams.
Go-to way to de-stress after a long week.
If it's nice weather outside, I love just sitting on my back porch with an orange Celsius, which is going to sound really weird, but that's my go-to. Just, sit on the back porch. I got my orange Celsius, just relax, see the sunset. Yeah. I'm, introvert by nature, so I recoup and get my energy back by having some quiet time.
Yeah.
Dream vacation spot.
Oh, the mountains, anywhere where people aren't. Respectfully, love you, people. We might need to cut that one.
No, I actually like that one. Who's someone living or dead you'd love to have coffee with?
I would probably go with my grandfather on my dad's side, who I spoke about earlier. When I was growing up, they lived in Pennsylvania. We were in Ohio, so we didn't see them all that often, once a year if we were lucky. I know a ton about him because he left behind some books that he shared about himself and his family and our family. I would love just to be able to ask him some questions about that and dig a little bit deeper.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm kind of anxious to hear this response based on orange Celsius and protein shakes. But this is, in fact, the most important question.
This is going to be even worse.
What? Can only imagine.
I'm just
and
telling
if it's
you.
grape nuts, what is the greatest cereal of all time?
I need a disclaimer first, okay? I have not eaten cereal in over 25 years.
Okay.
My favorite cereal is from my childhood.
Yes.
When I was growing up, my mom was very health conscious. So I don't even know if the cereal is around anymore.
Let's hope it's not, but go ahead.
But it is close to grape nuts. It is Raisin Nut Bran.
See, somebody else like grapes nuts.
So, do you know anything about the cereal?
No, Raisin. Are you sure that's the name of it?
Yeah, they have the sugary coating on them.
General Mills, Raisin Nut Bran.
Well, Todd, I appreciate your honesty. I do want to let you know there's a whole other world out there.
Hey, I'll never be hearing the end of it. I know that's okay.
There's a whole other world out there for you to discover. You just push that cart down the cereal aisle at Walmart, and you're just going to have your mind blown by just unbelievable choices. Todd, thanks for playing along.
Absolutely.
Todd, thank you. Thanks so much for your service to others, to our students, our families, our staff. We appreciate what you're doing already at Worthingway Middle School. I know the staff is thrilled to have you, and we just appreciate your dedication to Worthington schools in general. So thanks so much for taking the time with us today, sharing a little bit about yourself, and a shout out to Worthingway Cardinals for always taking good care of you too. So,
absolutely. Thank you. It was a pleasure being here. Thanks for the opportunity, and definitely shout out to Worthingway. It's an amazing school with awesome staff, awesome students.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Worth the Journey podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, our Worthington Schools website, or wherever you get your podcasts. A big thanks to Corey Carter and our communications team for making this podcast a reality. And of course, to our students at The Ohio State University in the communications department. The journey may not always be easy, but it'll definitely be worth it. Thanks for taking care of each other, and have a great day out there.